Hello, my dear students. Welcome back. We meet again in American Studies online classroom. Previously, we have discussed about inequality of Black people, Black society in the U.S. Um, in this video, I'll still be talking about some of the accounts of how American, particularly the Black American, being treated in the USA. So when we go back to the 1950s, 1960s, even 1970s, there were so many historical accounts that shape today's American society for sure. And but you have to underline and you have to bear in mind that American men did not believe in equality of the sexes for quite some time. So there is a toxic masculinity amongst men in the United States of America, where they believe that women are their subordinate, that women do not have the same rights or opportunity like them, and women should be treated not as equal as men, things like that. So this is what we call as toxic masculinity in the United States of America, where American men believe that they are more superior than women. They believe that women could not be leader, women could not be work professionally like what they are doing, things like that. And in those times, the women work in a low-level jobs and they usually receive very low salary, and they even could not go to college. Only few uh, women at the time finished college. Can you imagine that? So until 1960s or 1970s, women still struggle to get their own equality, and American Black women even, you know, receive worse treatment. Can you imagine? Even the white women in the US received inequality, but the Black American women doubled, you know, doubled what? Doubled the injustice treatment from the society. That's what I mean. So, um, but today, American women, uh, even though there there is an improvement in many departments, of course, but they are still fighting. They are still struggling for equality because uh, their salaries are generally lower than their men's counterpart. But of course, there were so many challenges, adversities. There were so many barriers that they face as women being treated in the society. So, um, however, many changes in the positions of the sexes have occurred, and half of all college students now are women, and half of women in the United States also have been experiencing or have been hired in the companies. More women are working than ever before in the US, and their salary has risen. So, especially women who works in government jobs, because it is easier for women to get jobs that used to be for men only right now. And many women also now have their own businesses, and they are working in executive in private businesses or organizations. So that's a very that's an improvement that we have been hoping for. Um, if we look at to our country in Indonesia, I think one figure of woman that we praise all the time is our heroine, which is Ibu Kita Kartini, which voiced the equality for women in Indonesia by telling all the women in Indonesia to get their education, to force them to be able to read, to write, and something. That's even in 1920 somethings or 1930 somethings, quite a long time ago. But even in the US, this kind of inequality is still happening in the late 1960s and 1970s. So it is considered as recent events, right? And in recent years also, many citizens have tried to add an amendment to the US Constitution. This is what we call as the Equal Rights Amendment, or ERA. This Equal Rights Amendments stipulates or says that both sexes, men and women, they have equal rights. So this is one of the most defining amendments in the United States of America, which says that both sexes, men and women, they're all equals. But because many people fear that the amendment could take away some of women's special protection, such as the right to alimony or financial support after divorce, and exception from the military draft, the amendment was not ratified or approved by enough states. That means these amendments have not been passed yet, even though some of the countrymen in the US have been drafting this amendment, but some sexists, some people in the United States have not been, you know, agreed with this amendment yet. Okay, when we talk about amendment, we are going to talk about the constitutions of the United States of America. For your information, USA is one of the biggest democracy countries in the world after India. United States has been practicing democracy for quite some time, so quite long time. That means they are mature enough to practice democracy. They are mature enough to show to the world that look at us, we have never had what we call as monarchy in the country. Our presidents were being chosen or voted by our own people. So from the people and by the people, that's the basic principle of democracy. And we can actually say that Indonesia also adopts the same way like America. So it is now our time to talk about how American political system is working on. We will be starting first from the overview of the US constitutions. So for your information, after the Revolutionary War, you still remember, right? Revolutionary War, where American against their mother country, which is British or United Kingdom at the time, there was an article of confederation in 1780, which is actually the basis of the new American government. So after the American Revolutionary War, the founding fathers wrote these articles of confederations. But it was not powerful enough. It was considered very weak government, and it did not work very well. And after that, there was a convention or a meeting. There were so many delegation from colonies, from states in the United States in 1787 to revise the Article of Confederation. And then the result of this meeting or this convention was actually today's US constitutions. So when we talk about the US Constitution, we talk about three main principles, three main things of this Constitution. First of all is the separation of powers of the three branches of government. Okay, you should bear in mind the first one of this basic Constitution of the US is the separation of powers of the three branches of the government. I think I think you aware of these three branches. First is judicative, and then executive and legislative, right? The second one, the government of, for, and by the people, or in bahasa Indonesia we can say pemerintahan dari rakyat dan untuk rakyat, right? And the third one, the US Constitution talks about the basic human rights or individual freedom, equality, and justice. So US upholds these concepts of freedom, equality, and justice very fondly. So you should bear in mind. First, the main constitution talks about the separation of power. The second is for the people and by the people, and the third one is the concepts of freedom, equality, and justice. Yeah, so you have to talk about this. After that, we will talk about the amendments, the most important amendments. I think I have discussed this before in the previous meeting. What is actually amendments? Amendment is like ratification of laws, atau dalam bahasa Indonesia perubahan undang-undang. So US Constitution has ratified many laws, many documents. Yeah, it ratified because in the meantime, the US government creates its own government. They face the new challenges, they faced the new problems, they discovered new formulas to make American becoming a greater states or countries. Okay, so one of the most important amendment is amendment number 13, which is ratified in 1865. It says that slavery is illegal. So this is the momentum where United States realizes that slavery system is not okay. It is racist. It is it does harm people, and we have to ratify and we have to say that slavery is illegal. That means if any one of the states in the US impose slavery system, that means that states, yeah, must be called out, and states must change the system. And amendment number 19, I can say. Amendment number 19, which is ratified in 1920, it says that women finally have rights to vote. Before, women did not have rights to choose their representative in the Democracy Party, but after 1920, that every woman in the United States, but at the time only whites, yeah, could have rights to vote. And then in amendment number 22, which happened in 1951, it says that the presidents of America may serve no more than 2 terms. I think this is also happening in Indonesia, that president could not lead the country more than 2 terms. Artinya presiden Indonesia ataupun presiden Amerika, ya memang mungkin Indonesia terinspirasi dari sistem di Amerika yang mengatakan bahwa presiden tidak bisa memerintah lebih dari 2 kali, ya. So that's what we can say. And then in amendment number 25 in 1967, it says that the vice president becomes president if the president cannot carry out his main duties to lead the country. So just like our country, right? If our president is ill, for example, or cannot carry out the duties, then the vice president will conduct the main jobs to become the interim president, we can say like that. And finally, amendment 26 Amendment number 26 in 1971, it says that all citizens, yeah, which is 18 years old, they have, or 18 years old or older, they may have rights to vote. Okay, so that's one of the highlights about U.S. Constitution or U.S. amendments. So I think it's enough for today. Next week, we are going to talk about the federal government or the American system of government. Right. If you have any questions, please write down in our WhatsApp group and I will try to answer. Thank you so much. That's all for today. I'll see you again next week. Bye bye, everyone.